Restaurant owner disguises himself as a customer, and the waitress handed him a terrifying note. Michael Thompson never imagined that an ordinary Tuesday would change his life forever. The businessman had decided to personally evaluate his most profitable restaurant in New York City, disguised as a regular customer to observe the service without being recognized. Sitting at a discreet table in the corner of the dining room, he watched every movement when the waitress approached with the menu. But instead of presenting the day's specials, the young woman placed a folded piece of paper next to his plate and whispered in a trembling voice, "Please read this carefully, sir." Michael opened the note and felt his blood run cold. The handwritten words were clear and direct. "I know who you are and what you did to my mother 20 years ago." He looked up, searching for the waitress, but she had already walked away and continued serving other tables as if nothing had happened. Her black hair was tied in a simple ponytail, her white apron pristine over her blouse, but something about her movements seemed tense, calculated. Michael's heart raced. Who was this girl? How did she know who he was if he was in disguise? And most importantly, what did she mean about his mother? He tried to discreetly stand up to leave, but the waitress appeared beside him again, pretending to wipe down the nearby table. "Aren't you going to finish your lunch?" she asked, but her dark eyes conveyed a different message. It would be a shame to waste such a special meal. The word "special" sounded like a veiled threat. Michael sat back down, feeling he had no choice. The young woman walked away again, but he noticed her watching him from the corner of her eye. 2 hours later, in the restaurant's office, Michael's hands were still shaking. He called Gladys, the general manager, a woman in her 60s who had worked with him for over a decade. "Gladys, I need to know everything about the new waitress, the brunette with her hair tied back." "Oh, Ashley." Gladys adjusted her glasses. "She's an exemplary girl, Mr. Thompson. She's only been here 3 weeks, but is very dedicated. Never late, never complains, the customers love her." "Where is she from? Does she have references?" "Yes, perfect paperwork. Worked at 2 other restaurants before, excellent recommendations." Gladys seemed puzzled. "Did something happen?" Michael shook his head, but something didn't add up. An exemplary employee handing out mysterious notes made no sense. "One strange thing," Gladys continued thoughtfully. "She always refuses tips, says she doesn't need them, and she keeps asking about the old employees like she wants to know the history of this place." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The next day, Michael returned to the restaurant in the same disguise. He chose a different table, but Ashley seemed to know exactly where he was. Throughout lunch, she passed by his table multiple times, always with some excuse. When she brought dessert, there was another folded note beneath the plate. "Her diary tells everything. Meet me in the parking lot at 9 tonight." Michael could barely eat. He spent the rest of the day restless, sifting through old memories in his mind. 20 years ago. In 2004, he was just expanding his business. The restaurant was still small, but promising. At 9 sharp, he was in the parking lot. Ashley appeared right on time, now without her apron, wearing a simple blouse and jeans. Under the yellow glow of the streetlight, Michael could see her face more clearly. There was something familiar in her delicate features, in her expressive eyes. "You came," she said, showing no surprise. "What is this about?" "Zzz. Who are you?" Michael tried to keep his voice steady, but the tension was evident. Ashley crossed her arms, studying him for a moment. "My name is Ashley Wilson Parker. My mother was Jennifer Wilson." The name hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Jennifer, the talented employee who had worked for him in the early 2000s, the ambitious young woman who dreamed of being a chef, who knew every recipe by heart, who arrived early and left late. "Jennifer," he murmured, memories slowly coming back. "I see you remember her," Ashley said, her voice a mix of pain and anger. "My mother worked here when she was young. She said this place was her dream." Michael vaguely remembered. Jennifer was dedicated, creative. Customers praised her dishes. But something had happened. "She got pregnant," Ashley continued, seeing the confusion on his face. "And you fired her," The memory came like a wave. Jennifer had asked to speak with him, nervous, explaining she was 3 months pregnant. She begged to keep working, promised the pregnancy wouldn't affect her performance. But back then, Michael was focused on building the image of a sophisticated restaurant. A pregnant employee didn't fit the elegance he wanted to portray. Plus, he feared the labor costs, the maternity leave, the possible complications. It was a different time, he tried to justify. Things were different. Different? Ashley laughed bitterly. You ruined her life. My mother left here crying, 3 months pregnant with no references, nothing. Ashley wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, but stayed firm. Do you know what happened after? She tried finding jobs at other restaurants, but they always asked about her last job. You told her you wouldn't give references because she had abandoned the job at the wrong time. Michael vaguely remembered saying something like that to the secretary back then. He wanted to discourage Jennifer from trying to come back. She worked as a cleaner during her pregnancy, Ashley went on, her voice breaking. She cleaned offices at dawn because it was the only shift she could get. I was born premature because she got sick at work, but couldn't afford to stop. Every word was like a knife to Michael's conscience. He had built an empire but never considered the human cost of his decisions. When I was little, my mother kept her old uniform from this restaurant in a box, Ashley said, tears now streaming freely. It was the only happy memory she had of working here. She said she felt valued here until I ruined it, Michael finished, guilt heavy in his chest. Exactly. They fell silent for a few minutes. The parking lot had emptied, leaving only a few employees' cars as they finished their shifts. What do you want from me? Michael finally asked. Money? Ashley shook her head. It's not about money. It's about justice. It's about acknowledgement. My mother worked herself to the bone raising me alone, and you went on with your life like nothing happened. Michael tried to speak, but she cut him off. Do you know she tried reaching out a few times over the years? She wanted a recommendation letter, just a simple reference to get better jobs. Your secretary always said you were busy. He remembered the instructions he'd given the secretary years ago. Don't take calls from problematic former employees. Jennifer was on that list. Ashley, I can make it right now. I can pay for the lost years, help your mother. No, she said firmly. This isn't about charity. It's about you understanding what you did, taking responsibility. She took a deep breath before continuing. I came to work here because I wanted to understand this place that meant so much to my mother. I wanted to see with my own eyes the man who destroyed our dreams with the stroke of a pen. And what did you find out? Michael asked, genuinely curious. That you're just a man, she replied. A man who made selfish decisions and never looked back to see the damage you caused. Michael felt the weight of her words. For 20 years, he had convinced himself it was just business. That his decisions were rational, necessary for the company's growth. He had never thought about people like Jennifer, about the lives he had disrupted along the way. Your mother, is she doing all right now? He asked, wary of the answer. Ashley hesitated before responding. She managed. She always managed. Worked 3 jobs to raise me, studied at night to get something better. Now she runs a small meal prep business, helps other single mothers. Michael felt a mix of relief and admiration. Jennifer had overcome the hardships he had created. But she was never the same, Ashley added. She never fully trusted employers again, never dreamed big after that. You broke something in her that day. In the days that followed, Michael couldn't focus on anything. Ashley's words echoed in his mind. He kept returning to the restaurant to watch her work, fascinated by the young woman's dedication and professionalism. Ashley was truly exemplary. She treated every customer with special care, memorized complex orders, helped in the kitchen during peak hours. There was a natural grace to her movements that reminded him of Jennifer. Michael remembered how Jennifer knew every recipe, how she suggested improvements to dishes, how customers always praised her. Ashley had inherited her mother's talent. A week after their encounter in the parking lot, Michael made a decision. He called Ashley into his office at the end of her shift. I know you don't want money, he began, but I want to propose something different. Ashley listened in silence, skeptical. I want you to work here for 6 months, not as a waitress, but learning every role. Kitchen, management, service. I want you to fully understand this business. Why? She asked, surprised. Because your mother deserved this opportunity 20 years ago. And maybe I can do something right this time. Ashley studied his face for a long moment. And after 6 months? Then you decide what you want to do with all that knowledge. There's one condition, she finally said. What? During those 6 months, no one can know about our conversation, not about my mother, not about the past. I want you to treat me like any other employee. If I earn promotions, it should be because of my work, not your guilt. Michael agreed. There was something fair in her request. The following months were revealing for both of them. Ashley proved to be an exceptional learner. In the kitchen, she picked up techniques quickly and suggested creative variations that even impressed the head chef, Gordon, a seasoned man who rarely praised newcomers. That girl has instinct, Gordon told Michael one day. Understands flavors like few do. Where did she come from? Michael just smiled, keeping the secret. But not everything was easy. Some of the older staff resisted the changes Ashley proposed. Deborah, the service supervisor, felt threatened by the young woman's dedication. She's sticking her nose where it doesn't belong, Deborah complained to Michael. Yesterday, she suggested rearranging the tables. Who does she think she is? Michael was learning to see the restaurant's dynamics in a new light. How many other valuable ideas had he ignored over the years, just because they came from lower-level employees? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. During the 3rd month, an incident changed everything. Gordon, the head chef, had a sudden health scare during the Saturday dinner rush. The restaurant was packed, with reservations fully booked and a waiting line at the door. The sous chef panicked, unable to manage the kitchen alone. That's when Ashley stepped up. I can help, she said, tying on an apron. Within 2 hours, she coordinated the kitchen with impressive ease. Dishes went out on time, with quality maintained. Michael watched from the pass, unable to believe his eyes. How does she know how to do this? Gladys asked, equally amazed. Natural talent, Michael murmured, thinking of Jennifer. That night, after everyone had left, Michael found Ashley cleaning the kitchen. You saved the restaurant today, he said. I just did what needed to be done, she replied, not stopping her work. Where did you learn to run a kitchen like that? Ashley paused for a moment with a wistful smile. My mother taught me. When I was little, she'd practice the recipes she learned here. Our home kitchen became her lab. She explained every technique, every seasoning to me. Does she still cook? Every day. For her business, for the neighbors, for anyone who needs it. Ashley went back to cleaning. Cooking is my mother's love language. That night, Michael stayed at the restaurant late, lost in thought. Jennifer had passed her skills to her daughter, keeping alive the passion he'd tried to destroy 20 years earlier. By the 4th month, Gordon returned to work, but he wasn't the same. The health scare had left him more cautious, less willing to handle the dinner rush. He began delegating more responsibilities to Ashley, who accepted them effortlessly. She has the potential to be a chef, Gordon told Michael, but she needs formal training. She has technique but lacks refinement. Michael saw an opportunity. What if I paid for a culinary course for her? That'd be an excellent investment, but why would you do that? She's just a waitress. Michael didn't answer directly. Sometimes we invest in people because we see potential. Truthfully, Michael was starting to see Ashley as the daughter he never had. At 55, single and focused on business, he'd never seriously considered having a family. But spending time with the young woman had awakened paternal feelings he didn't know he had. When he proposed the course to Ashley, she hesitated. Why would you do this for me? Because it's a good investment, he half lied. It was more than that, but he couldn't say so yet. Ashley accepted on the condition that she'd work part-time to pay for the course with her own salary. Michael wanted to cover everything but respected her independence. On weekends, while Ashley attended the course, Michael visited the restaurant to observe operations. That's when he discovered things that deeply troubled him. Kevin, one of the senior waiters, mistreated new staff. He yelled in the kitchen, humiliated younger waitresses, and created a toxic environment Michael had never noticed. "Why has no one ever told me about this?" he asked Gladys. "People are afraid of losing their jobs," she answered honestly. "Kevin is friends with Chef Gordon, he's protected. Employees endure it because they need the paycheck." Michael was seeing patterns he'd never noticed before. How many people like Jennifer had suffered in silence over the years? He decided to act. On a Friday, he called all the staff for a meeting after closing. "I want to establish new rules," he announced. "I won't tolerate any kind of harassment or mistreatment among employees anymore. Anyone can come directly to me if they're under any kind of pressure." The reaction was mixed. Some seemed relieved, others uncomfortable. Kevin was clearly bothered. "Boss, it's always been like this here," Kevin said. "The kitchen is a high-pressure place, everyone knows that." "Pressure to do good work, not to humiliate people," Michael shot back. "Things are going to change." In the following days, some employees approached Michael to report situations they'd endured for years. Stories of humiliation, emotional abuse, unfair favoritism. Michael fired Kevin the next Monday. The decision caused an uproar, since Kevin had been considered untouchable. "You're changing," Gladys remarked. "Over the last few months, you've become more human." Ashley returned from culinary school transformed. Her technical skills had sharpened, but more than that, she came back with newfound confidence and a broader vision of gastronomy. "I learned about cost management, menu creation, supplier relations," she told Michael. "It's a much bigger world than I imagined." "And what do you want to do with that knowledge?" "I'm not sure yet," she answered honestly. "But I know I want to do something that honors everything my mother taught me." By the 5th month, an unexpected event shifted the dynamic between them. Gordon announced he'd retire at the end of the year. At 62, he wanted more time with his family. "I need to choose a replacement," Michael said to Ashley. "Do you feel ready?" "Me?" She seemed genuinely surprised. "But there are other, more experienced chefs. Experience is built, talent is innate." Michael paused. "Besides, the staff respects you. That matters in a kitchen." Ashley asked for time to think. The following week, she came to Michael with a counteroffer. "I'll accept being head chef, but on one condition. I want to implement some changes to the menu and operations." "What kind of changes?" "A meal program for families in need. Once a week, the restaurant would provide free meals for those who can't afford them." Michael hesitated. It wasn't the kind of initiative that fit the restaurant's upscale profile. "The costs? I've calculated everything." Ashley showed him a paper with detailed numbers. "By using usable leftovers and buying basic ingredients in bulk, the added cost would be minimal. Plus, it would be great for the restaurant's image." Michael studied the numbers. Mathematically, it made sense, but there was something deeper behind the proposal. "Why is this important to you?" "Because I was once a child who depended on the kindness of strangers to eat," she replied simply. "My mother and I went hungry a few times when I was little. If someone had helped us back then." The words hung in the air, but Michael understood perfectly. By the 6th and final month of their agreement, Ashley had become indispensable at the restaurant. Customers constantly praised her dishes, the staff respected her, and the establishment's numbers had improved significantly. Michael knew time was running out, but he didn't want her to leave. Over those months, he'd learned more about human management than in his entire career. A week before the deadline, Ashley came to his office. "I need to tell you something," she said, looking nervous. "What?" "My mother knows I work here." Michael's heart raced. "What do you mean? I told her in the 3rd month I couldn't keep lying." Ashley took a deep breath. She was furious at first, said I was playing with fire, that you could hurt me. "And now?" "Now she wants to meet you." The thought of facing Jennifer after 20 years terrified Michael. What kind of woman had she become? What did she think of him? How would she react upon seeing him? "She doesn't want money, nor apologies," Ashley continued. "She just wants to talk, says she needs to close this chapter in her life." Michael agreed to the meeting but asked for a few days to prepare himself mentally. The following Friday, Jennifer arrived at the restaurant at 3 in the afternoon, the agreed-upon time between the lunch and dinner rushes. Michael waited for her at a reserved table, his hands sweating and his heart racing. When he saw her walk in, he barely recognized the woman before him. The young, anxious Jennifer from 20 years ago had become an elegant 45-year-old woman, her hair streaked with grey, dressed simply but with undeniable dignity. She approached the table with steady steps in no hurry. When she extended her hand to greet him, Michael noticed the marks of hard work, but also the strength of someone who had succeeded in life on her own merits. "Jennifer," he said, standing up. "Michael," she replied, sitting down naturally. They sat in silence for a few minutes, studying each other. Michael saw traces of the young woman he had fired in the woman before him, but also a strength she hadn't possessed before. "You look well," he finally said. "I am," she replied simply. "It wasn't easy, but I am." "Jennifer, No," she gently interrupted. "I didn't come here for apologies. I came to understand." "Understand what?" "Why you did it. What was going through your mind when you decided to let me go like that?" Michael took a deep breath. It was a question he had asked himself many times over the past few months. "I was building an empire," he said honestly. "I saw every employee as a cog in a machine. When you got pregnant, all I saw were complications, costs, future problems. And now? How do you see me now? As someone who deserved so much more than she got. As a courageous woman who raised an extraordinary daughter, despite every obstacle I put in her way." Jennifer nodded slowly. "You know what was hardest back then?" she asked. "It wasn't the lack of money, not even having to work while pregnant. It was losing faith in myself." "What do you mean?" "For months, I wondered if you were right. If I really wasn't good enough, if I was a bad employee, if I deserved to be let go." She paused. "It took me years to realize the problem wasn't me." Michael felt a deeper pang of guilt. He hadn't just taken her job, he'd shaken her self-worth. "I'm sorry," he said, but she shook her head. "I don't want your apology, Michael. I forgave myself a long time ago, and that's what mattered." "Then what do you want from me?" "For you to understand that your decisions affect real people." Jennifer leaned forward. "Ashley told me about the changes you've made at the restaurant these past few months. How you've treated employees better. How you fired those causing trouble. She opened my eyes to things I couldn't see." "That's good, but I worry about her motivations." Michael looked at her curiously. "What kind of worry?" "Ashley's always been very protective of me. As a child, she'd fight anyone at school who spoke badly of single mothers." Jennifer smiled fondly. "I'm afraid she took this job out of anger, not opportunity." "And that would be bad?" "Anger builds very little, Michael. I learned that the hard way." Jennifer then spoke about the first years after being fired. How she'd spent sleepless nights plotting revenge, thinking of ways to hurt the restaurant or his reputation. "I wasted too much energy hating you," she admitted. "Energy I should have used to build my own life." "When did that change?" "When Ashley was born. I looked at that baby and realized I could choose to raise a daughter full of hate or full of hope. I chose hope." Michael was moved by her maturity. Jennifer had turned a traumatic experience into wisdom. "May I ask about your life now?" he said. "I have a small meal prep business, as Ashley must have told you. It started out of necessity, then became a passion." Jennifer smiled. "I cook for 30 families every week, mostly single mothers' families. Is it profitable? It supports our home and still helps others. To me, that's success." Michael admired the simplicity with which she defined prosperity. It was so different from his own measure of success, based on numbers and constant growth. "And men? Did you ever marry?" "Dated a few times, but never wanted to marry." Jennifer smiled. "Ashley and I were always a complete family." They talked for 2 more hours, about their daughter, about the dreams each had built over the years, about the lessons life had taught them. When Jennifer stood up to leave, Michael felt something fundamental had been resolved between them. There was no formal forgiveness, no dramatic reconciliation, but there was mutual understanding. "Michael," she said before leaving, "take good care of Ashley. She inherited my dreams but also my stubbornness. You can count on it. And treat your employees well. You have the power to change lives, for better or worse." On the last day of the 6-month agreement, Ashley sought Michael out in his office. He had been waiting for this moment with both eagerness and dread. "The time has come," she said, sitting in the chair across from his desk. "And what's your decision?" "I want to stay," she replied without hesitation. "But not as a regular employee. I want to be a partner." Michael nearly choked on his coffee. "A partner?" "During these months I've learned a lot about the business. I see potential for growth, but also problems that need fixing." Ashley opened a folder with documents. "I made an expansion plan, dear listener. If you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing." Michael examined the papers. It was a detailed plan to open a second restaurant location, focused on a different audience. Less sophisticated, more affordable, but maintaining the food's quality. "Where would you get the capital to be a partner?" he asked. "I don't have any," she admitted, "but I have something more valuable. Knowledge, dedication, and a fresh vision for the business." "What kind of partnership are you proposing?" 20% to start. I'll work without a salary until the new location turns a profit. If it succeeds, we increase my share." Michael studied the proposal carefully. Mathematically, it made sense. He'd gain a dedicated partner without upfront capital, but there were emotional stakes involved. "Why do you want this, Ashley? Is it because of what happened with your mother?" "At first, maybe it was," she answered honestly, "but now it's different. Over these months, I've come to love this place as my mother did. I want to build something here, not destroy it." "And your mother, what does she think?" "She said she'd only accept it if it's a professional decision, not a personal one, that I can't mix feelings with business." Michael smiled. Jennifer had raised a wise daughter. "There's one more thing," Ashley said, hesitating. "What?" "I want the new location to be managed by single mothers, a place where women like my mom can rebuild their lives without fear of discrimination." The idea struck Michael deeply. It was a way to symbolically make amends for the past mistake. "I accept," he said, "but on one condition." "What?" "Your mother will be our HR consultant. I want her to help me create fair policies for employees." Ashley smiled for the first time since she had delivered the first frightening note. She'll love the irony. 6 months later, the restaurant's second location was running smoothly. Jennifer had accepted the role of consultant and completely transformed the company's labor policies. Now there was daycare for employees' children, flexible schedules for mothers, and paid leave for family emergencies. The most surprising part was that these changes had improved productivity rather than hurt it. Happier employees worked better, turnover had dropped dramatically, and the company's reputation had improved. Michael was in his office reviewing the numbers when Ashley walked in with an envelope in her hands. "Another note?" he joked. "In a way," she smiled, handing him the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter from Jennifer. "Michael, when Ashley told me about the first note she gave you, I admit I was worried. I feared she was repeating my own past mistakes, letting anger guide her decisions. But seeing the changes you've implemented together, I understand that sometimes confronting the past is necessary to build a better future. Thank you for giving my daughter the opportunity I never had, and even more for learning from mistakes and becoming a better employer. That means more to me than any apology or financial compensation. Warmly, Jennifer." Michael folded the letter carefully and placed it in his drawer. In less than a year, that woman and her daughter had transformed not only his business, but also his outlook on life. "You know what the hardest part of all this was?" Ashley asked. "What?" "Stopping myself from hating you," she answered honestly. "It was easier when you were just the villain in our story, realizing you could change complicated everything." Michael laughed. "For me, it was similar. It was simpler when I could pretend employees were just numbers on a spreadsheet." 2 years later, the chain had grown to 5 locations. Each one prioritized hiring people in vulnerable situations, single mothers, those reintegrating into society, young people with no experience, The model had become a benchmark for corporate social responsibility. Jennifer had become a sought-after consultant, helping other companies implement humane policies. Ashley had developed a line of special dishes, honoring recipes from employees' mothers, creating a unique multicultural menu. Michael, at 58, had discovered that the most rewarding success didn't come just from financial growth, but from the positive impact on people's lives. One Thursday afternoon, while visiting the original location, he found Jennifer and Ashley setting up a photo exhibit at the restaurant's entrance. The pictures showed employees with their families, stories of resilience, and testimonials about how their jobs had changed their lives. "What's this idea?" he asked. "We wanted to show customers that every dish they eat represents someone's dream," Jennifer explained. "That behind every recipe is a human story." Michael looked at the photos. He recognized many faces. Rachel, the receptionist who had gone back to school with the company's help and was now studying business. Tyler, the kitchen assistant who had overcome addiction and become one of the most dedicated employees. Tiffany, the waitress who had bought her own house after 2 years of work. "You know, I might be a little biased," he said, moved, "but I think we've created something special here." "We have," Ashley teased. "From what I remember, you didn't even want to give me a chance at first." "Touché," Michael admitted. "You two created this. I just learned not to get in the way." Jennifer stepped closer to him. "You know what I've learned all these years? That people can change, Michael. Even the most stubborn and proud ones." "Are you talking about me or you?" he joked. "Both," she replied with a smile. That night, after everyone had left, Michael stayed alone in the restaurant for a few minutes. He remembered the day he received the first note from Ashley, the fear he felt, the initial anger. That piece of paper had been the first step on a journey that completely transformed his life. He had learned that leading people wasn't like controlling machines, that prosperity wasn't measured only in money, and that fixing past mistakes was possible when there was a genuine desire to change. He took a pen and paper and wrote his own message. "To Jennifer and Ashley, thank you for showing me it's never too late to start over, that a frightening note can become the beginning of a new life. With eternal gratitude, Michael." He placed the paper in the drawer next to Jennifer's letter. They were reminders that the best stories begin when we have the courage to confront our mistakes and work to make them right. 5 years after that first encounter in the parking lot, Michael organized a company anniversary party across all locations simultaneously. Over 200 employees and their families gathered to celebrate not just financial success, but especially the social impact they had built together. During his speech, Michael publicly shared Jennifer's story for the first time and how she had changed his perspective on leadership. "This company exists today not just because we spotted a market opportunity," he told the crowd. "It exists because a brave young woman had the audacity to confront past injustices and force me to look in the mirror." Ashley, now a full partner with 30% of the company, had tears in her eyes. Jennifer, seated in the front row, gave Michael a discreet nod. "I've learned that leadership isn't just about giving orders or making financial decisions," he continued. "It's about creating opportunities for others to fulfill their own dreams. It's understanding that every employee has a story, a family, ambitions that go beyond work." The audience applauded, but Michael knew the most important words weren't the ones he was speaking then. They were the ones he had learned to live by every day. After the party, Jennifer approached him. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For proving people can truly change, for giving Ashley an opportunity she earned on her own merit, for turning your pain into strength to help others." "I'm the one who should thank you," Michael replied, "for saving me from becoming a bitter, lonely man." "You weren't alone," Jennifer smiled. "You just didn't know how to connect with people." That night, Michael went home with a sense of fulfillment he had never felt before. At 63, he had discovered that true success wasn't measured by what we accumulate, but by what we build with others. The note that once frightened him had become the greatest gift he'd ever received. 6 months later, Ashley announced she was pregnant. The news brought special joy to the entire company, which rallied to prepare for the baby's arrival. "Now I understand how my mother felt back then," she told Michael. The difference is today I know my child will grow up in a place where they're seen as a blessing, not a problem. Michael smiled, thinking how life had come full circle. He'll be the first official baby of our company family, he said. Let's do this right this time. When the baby was born, a boy named Ethan, Michael was surprised by the depth of his emotion. It was as if he were a proud grandfather watching the future of the company literally growing before his eyes. Jennifer brought Ethan to visit the restaurant when he turned 3 months old. Seeing the grandmother, the mother, and the grandson in the place that had once represented pain and rejection, now transformed into a symbol of hope and opportunity, Michael felt he had fulfilled a mission he didn't even know he had. He'll grow up knowing this story, Jennifer said, rocking her grandson. He'll know that his mother and grandmother turned sadness into strength, that his business godfather learned to value people over profits. Business godfather? Michael laughed. I like the title. Years passed, and the company kept growing, always maintaining the human-centered principles Jennifer and Ashley had helped build. Ethan grew up running through the restaurant halls, spoiled by all the employees, learning early on that work can be a source of dignity and joy. When he turned 10, Ethan surprised Michael with a gift he made at school, a drawing of his family, which included not just Jennifer and Ashley, but also Michael and several restaurant employees. Why did you draw me in your family? Michael asked, curious. Because my mum said family isn't just about sharing the same blood, Ethan replied with the simplicity of a child. It's about who cares for us and wants the best for us. At that moment, Michael realized he had received the greatest gift possible, a family he had chosen, built on forgiveness, growth, and genuine love. At 70, Michael decided to partially retire, handing daily management of the company to Ashley while keeping only an advisory role. The decision was celebrated by everyone, who saw him not just as a boss, but as a mentor and friend. At his farewell party, the most precious keepsake wasn't the business awards or financial certificates, but a photo album Jennifer had prepared. It began with a picture of her as a young woman wearing the old restaurant uniform and ended with a recent photo of 3 generations of the family gathered in the kitchen, preparing Ethan's favorite recipe. This is the true measure of our success, Jennifer said, showing the last photo. Not how many restaurants we have, but how many lives we've touched for the better. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story of transformation and forgiveness. Do you believe people can truly change when confronted with their past mistakes? Share your thoughts in the comments and let us know about similar experiences you've heard of. Your interaction means so much to us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more heartwarming stories like this one.